be a leader if she'd just give me a chance.
We all know Nuka as the skinny lion from The Lion King 2. He was always trying to prove himself, but no matter what he did, he was never good enough. His mother, Zira, only cared about Kovu, and his whole life, Nuka just wanted to be seen. But what if I told you that his story is even more tragic than we thought? Because Nuka's struggles didn't just start when Kovu was born. They started the moment he came into this world. He immediately got rejected from his own father, Scar. To understand what really happened, we need to go back in time to when Nuka's tragic story began during Scar's reign. When Scar became king, he thought everything would finally go his way. Everyone would admire him and praise him just like they did for Mufasa. But it didn't turn out as he expected. Everyone was still loyal to Mufasa, and no lioness wanted anything to do with Scar. Scar hoped that Sarabi would finally take his side after Mufasa had been gone, since he had been in love with her ever since he met her. But Sarabi never got over Mufasa and would never be Scar's queen. Scar also had no success with the other lionesses, and his time of making a cub was becoming shorter. He realized if he didn't find anyone soon, his legacy wouldn't continue. He knew he needed an heir. So Scar went looking for a mate outside the Pride Lands. That's when he found Zira. Zira was different from the others. She didn't fear Scar, she admired him. After all the terrible stories Scar had told her about Mufasa and the other lionesses in the Pride Lands, Zira started to feel bad for Scar. She believed he was the true king and wanted to help him in any way she could. Scar saw this as a chance. He pretended to love Zira just so she would give him the heir he needed. Not long after, Zira got pregnant with Nuka, and at first, Scar couldn't be happier. But when Nuka was born, he wasn't so happy anymore. Because Nuka wasn't the strong cub he had hoped for. Nuka was small, thin, and always seemed a little sick. Scar didn't want him to continue his legacy. He could never be a good king, he thought. But Zira didn't notice Scar's disappointment. She was blindly in love with the king of the Pride Lands. She believed Scar had a plan for them, that he would bring them to the Pride Lands soon. But Scar didn't want them there. He wanted to keep them far away, so he made up excuses like, "The lionesses wouldn't accept you," Scar told Zira. "It's safer for you and Nuka in the Outlands." Zira believed him because she thought Scar was protecting them. Scar even sent some hyenas her way every day to check up on her. How sweet is that? But Nuka was just a cub, and even he could see the truth. His father rejected him. But instead of giving up, Nuka tried even harder. Nuka wanted to prove himself to his father. He wanted to be just like him, strong, clever, and feared by everyone. So he started copying Scar's behavior, sneering when he talked and trying to sound confident. But no matter what he did, it didn't work. The lionesses didn't take him seriously, and they all laughed at him. Even Zira didn't seem to care. She was always too focused on Scar to notice how hard Nuka was trying, and as time passed, his life only got harder. The Outlands were not a place for the weak. There was barely any food, the water was dirty, and the sun was burning hot. And when the hyenas came, they would always mess with Nuka because they knew he would fall for it. Zira did her best to provide for him, but there was never enough. The lionesses hunted whatever they could find, but most of the time it wasn't much. Nuka knew that cubs in the Pride Lands didn't have to live like this. He had seen them from a distance, healthy, strong, and not as skinny as he was. But Scar had promised that one day, everything would change. Nuka wanted to believe that, but deep down, a part of him wasn't sure if Scar would ever give them the good life. But then, his life changed. He got a little sister named Vitani. Nuka hoped that things would finally be better now. Maybe their family would be complete. Maybe Scar would finally bring them home. But things didn't get better. Vitani was born strong. Even as a tiny cub, she had sharp eyes and a fierce spirit. Zira saw the potential in her right away and started training her to be a fighter. Vitani never had to fight for Zira's attention the way Nuka did. From the start, their mother saw her as special. While Nuka was left to fend for himself, Zira made sure Vitani was always taken care of. And even though Vitani was younger, she quickly became tougher than Nuka. She wasn't afraid of anything, and she didn't complain about their hard life the way Nuka did. She never seemed to doubt Scar or question Zira's plans, and Zira admired that. It wasn't fair. He was the firstborn. He was supposed to be important, but no matter what he did, Zira still treated him like he was a failure. Then things got even worse. Because after Vitani, Kovu was born. Nuka already felt like an outcast, but after Kovu was born, he became invisible. Scar took one look at Kovu and made his decision. This cub would be his heir. Nuka was furious. He had waited his whole life for Scar to notice him and had tried everything to prove himself, and now, out of nowhere, Kovu was Scar's chosen one? It didn't make any sense. Kovu wasn't even Scar's real son, but Scar didn't care about that. The only thing he saw was a strong cub. Scar finally had the heir he wanted. Zira was overjoyed. To her, this meant that Scar truly loved her. She became completely focused on Kovu, training him to be the next king. And Nuka? Nuka became nothing. His mother barely looked at him anymore. The other lionesses stopped taking him seriously, and worst of all, he knew that Scar still wouldn't care about him. No matter what he did, he would never be good enough. But he wouldn't give up. Nuka kept on trying to prove himself and had spent his whole life waiting for the day that Scar would bring them back to the Pride Lands. But that day never came, because the Pride Lands had gotten a new visitor. One night, Zira came back from the Outlands with news that would change everything. Simba had returned and defeated Scar. The lion Nuka had looked up to, the one he had wanted to impress more than anything, was gone. And worse, Scar had never even said goodbye. Zira was sad and angry. She felt betrayed. She told Nuka and the others that Simba was a murderer, that he had stolen the throne. They had to follow Scar's orders, and he wanted Kovu to be the king when he was gone. So that is what was going to happen, Zira told them. She made sure they all believed it. And so, instead of mourning Scar, Nuka was forced to prepare for war and helping Kovu. Not long after, Nuka had to help his mother attack Simba. Simba tried to explain to her that Scar was never the real king to begin with, which made Zira even more angry. But it was no use. Simba's pride was way stronger than Zira's group, and they were banished from the Pride Lands. And they were now called the Outsiders. The Outlands were still dry, the food was still scarce, and it was only getting worse. But Zira didn't care. She had to make Scar's wishes come true, so she was going to make Kovu the next king, no matter how long it took. Nuka, however, was left to watch from the sidelines. He wasn't important. He wasn't even part of Zira's plan. After years of training Kovu, Zira was finally ready to put her plan into motion. She knew Kovu wasn't going to make it by just walking straight up to Simba, but Zira had a different idea. She knew Simba's biggest weakness, his love for his daughter, Kiara. If Kovu could get close to Kiara, he could earn Simba's trust. He had to save Kiara to make Simba believe it, and then, when the time was right, he could strike. But to do that, Kiara needed to be in danger first, and that's where Nuka and Vitani came in. Therefore, Zira sent Nuka and Vitani to follow Kiara during her first hunt, waiting till she was alone. Nuka and Vitani then planted fires on the dry grass, and before they knew it, it had spread everywhere. The fire closed in on Kiara just like Zira had planned. She tried to escape, but the smoke was too much for her, and that is when Kovu came to the rescue. He quickly put her on his back and helped her back to safety. When Simba found Kovu standing next to Kiara, he first wanted to get mad, but then Rafiki made him realize that Kovu had actually saved Kiara's life. So then he decided to give Kovu a chance, and it all went just like Zira had planned. But once Kovu was inside Simba's pride, he started to change. At first he followed Zira's plan and looked for moments to strike on Simba, but he also got to spend more time with Kiara, and that is when something changed in him. She showed him how to have fun, and that there was no need for anger. He slowly started to fall for Kiara and realized that his mother was wrong, and just when he was about to tell her the truth, everything changed. Simba and Kovu went on a walk together to talk, but then they heard something. Growls starting to get closer. They were being ambushed. Nuka proudly followed his mother and the other lionesses. Kovu was in shock. He first tried to help Simba, but once swept away, he froze, and Simba ran. And Nuka? He saw his chance and ran after him. Simba was already injured from the ambush, but he was still strong. He ran up a pile of logs, trying to escape, but Nuka didn't stop. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was winning. If he took down Simba, he would be the one to restore Scar's legacy. He would be the one to make Zira proud. But then, the logs beneath him shifted. Before he could react, the entire pile collapsed. Nuka's paws slipped and the weight of the logs crashed onto him. And Simba managed to escape. But Nuka was trapped and struggled to breathe. As Zira ran over to him, Nuka's last words proved his dedication to his mother.
I'm sorry, Mother. I tried. Shh.
Zira was in shock and even seemed a little sad, but what she felt the most was rage. She smacked Kovu in the face, leaving him with a scar across his eye. She was furious and blamed Kovu for Nuka's death. He should have gone after Simba instead of just standing there. But Kovu was done with his mother's actions and ran off. But Nuka's death did change something in Zira. She was now even more angry at Simba, and she ordered her lionesses to fight with her and take his kingdom by force. But as she set her plan into motion, she was surprised. Just as she was about to hit Simba, Kovu jumped in front of her. In the meantime, he had realized Zira never really cared for him or anyone else. He had started to feel bad for Nuka. With the help of Kiara, they got everyone to agree to make peace, except for Zira. Her hatred eventually became her death. Simba invited all of Zira's lionesses to Pride Rock, where they were all soon to be living together. After living in the Pride Lands for a while, Vitani also soon realized that Zira wasn't always a good mother, and Kovu felt bad that Nuka never got to experience the good life he and Vitani were having in the Pride Lands now. Even though he was never that close with his brother, it was not his fault he felt that way. Nuka just wanted to be seen and loved. But how do you feel about Nuka? Do you think he could have been a good king if he ever got the chance? Well, I actually made a video about Nuka following in Scar's paw prints in this video about what if Kovu killed Simba, where Nuka's jealousy of Kovu gets even bigger. So now that you know Nuka's story, you should really watch that video to understand him even better. Let me know how you feel about Nuka in the comments below, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. And I'll catch you next time.